Alrighty. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classics / Non-Classics. This is episode number 1762 and Doubleshot number 1656. I have two trades here featuring characters created by Stan Lee and Jack the King Kirby. First up, technically his identity for this character was not created by Stan Lee, but he did create the character. We have Fear itself, Hulk. This collects Hulk Volume 2, issues 37 to 41. Done by Jeff Parker. Yep, Jeff Parker writes this thing. Yep, and now there are technically two stories in here per se. The first three issues, 37 and 39, is the Fear itself tie-in. Actually, it's more like 37, 38, and then like the last three is a separate story arc. That's basically I think it's like the Omega Drome, I think it is, basically fighting this thing. Yes. Now, in the Fear itself tie-in, it's mostly put for that one. It's just a bit of expansion on the fight between Red Hulk and the Thing during the events of Fear itself. That's most of what it is. It's just a little bit more perspective on that. That's most of what the Fear itself tie-in is. It's good. I at least got hit at Jet Park. Doesn't contradict anything happened in the book, so good job for that. Yep. The Mega Drive, I believe this is sort of an alien artifact. We also have this woman named 01 that pops up in here. Yes. She is sort of a semi-recurring character in the pages of this book. Yes, for some reason Jeff Parker made her sort of a recurring character in the book for reasons. I'm not really sure why. It's just that he did. I think 01, I think she is... I think she's part of the UFOs. Actually, no. Basically, she isn't. She's mostly a character Jeff Parker created in the very first issue of this run. And mostly put, she's here for pretty much most of the run. Excuse me. Yeah. Excuse me. First appearing in the start of the Scorched Earth story arc, for about a couple issues. She actually came back and she actually skipped some issues. She's here regularly from issue 37 forward up until 41. After this particular, at issue 41, she's not seen again into issue 47. Yep. I mean, she only appears in 13 issues of this, like, I think it's like a 35 issue run, I believe it is. Because, if I remember correctly, I think this run ends with issue 57. Yep. 57 is pretty much the end of this particular run. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's the end of an era when it comes to this particular book. Yes. Yeah. Now, this book is just really good. I enjoy what Jeff Parker does with the book. Is it as good as basically Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness? Not per se, but it's still very good. I give this book a 9.5 out of 10. Just a damn good book. And in case you're curious, though, how many trades left to go for this particular run for Hulk? Well, this is basically the Red Hulk. Now, I say this is a character created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, mainly because the fact the character is... Well, Thunderbolt Ross says, of course, yes. Now, as to how many trades are left, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, there's about 5 trades left. There is Planet Red Hulk, Hulk of Arabia, Haunted Hulk, and Mayan Rule. And that's it. No, seriously, that is it. If you're curious to how many trades were there for that collect this whole run, if you don't count the Red She-Hulk stuff, let's see, 7, 8. There is roughly 12 trades that collect 57 issues. Though for some reason, when Jed Parker took over the book, they decided to drop the volume numbering from the book and just basically make its own standalone trade. This way, I'm still collecting the same run. Alright, of course, those issues came out of the year of 2011. This came out like 25 years earlier. This is Fantastic Four / Inhumans Atlantis Rising. Fun fact about this particular type of storytelling, with the whole thing of Atlantis running the surface. Now you might be curious though, DC do this over in Pages of Aquaman? Yes. In the period of time this came out? No. That did not happen until, believe it or not, I think it was during the Kels. No, what was the Kels? It was during, I believe it was during, toward the end of Dan Abnett's run for the book. When he was writing the book, that's when they had the Atlantis rise to the surface and had a story called Sink Atlantis, which was a crossover between Aquaman and the Suicide Squad by Rob Williams. This book mostly has material from, I think it was like from, basically we start off, now the main issues we have in here are Namor the Submariner, issues 60 to 62, Fantastic Four at Atlantis Rising 1 through 2, the first volume for Fantastic Four, issues 8 and 9, Fantastic Four 401 to 402, and Fantastic Four Unlimited number 11. Now, I should point out though, the name of the Submariner issues, that actually serves as a prelude to this very crossover. And here's a fun fact for you about this particular storyline. Now, the issues I'm collecting here are in fact the last 3 issues of this ongoing series. And here's the weird thing about this. Namor would not have a solo book published again until, you're going to love this, 2010. Yes, seriously, that's how long they had to wait for Namor to get another solo book. That was Namor the First Mutant. It didn't last very long. It's by far of his, like, I would say, let's see, 1, 2, I would say it was 4 ongoing series he's had. That one's by far the shortest. And of course, these issues came out back in the around the early 1990s. Yeah, first that was not published in the back here. Material from issues 58 to 59. Most of those issues, it sets up basically what happens in the main book. Now, the main book itself for Namor, at first this book was written by John Byrne. He was the original writer for the book, and he left for the first 8 issues. Now, this book is mostly done by Glenn Hardling. He's the writer. You have Jeff Ishwood as the artist. And of course, you have Namor. Of course, it's the 90s. We have to on the comic head side. And he's got a mullet. Yep. Because characters had to have mullets in the 1990s. And we also experienced by Triton, who, appearing in this book, makes total sense. Because his powers work very well when he's underwater, because he has to wear a water suit, because he's an Inhuman. And of course, appearance by Blood Wraith. Now, you're probably asking, Nick, who is this guy? I have technically talked about this guy before when I talk about Kurt Busiek's run for Avengers. He was Black Knight's former squire, who got his hands on the Ebony Blade and became Blood Wrath. He made his first appearance in the Black Knight miniseries that came back in the early 1990s. That's where he appeared prior to this. Here, he just appears here just like, oh, a threatening villain. And the whole thing with this 3-parter is that we see basically like Namor fight Blood Wrath for these last 3 issues. We have a woman named Andromeda. I believe this woman is the daughter of Atuma, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And throughout this final 3 issues, Namor is fighting Blood Wrath. And of course, he has his appearance by the Black Knight because, well, he trained him. And pretty much here we're showing the seeds. And we also see Marina, Namor's wife. Yes. Who at one point was killed off and then she came back. Yep. Yeah, believe it or not, this one was part of Alpha Flight. And she was actually recently resurrected as part of Chaos War. But weirdly enough, she is not reunited with her husband. And here's something interesting, though, about her. She's an alien. Yes, Marna is an alien, and she's rumored to actually have children with Namor, but there's sort of this thing where he's sort of impotent, and yet in the Submariner book that came out in 2006, he actually had an actual son. And Marna is not the mother. Nope. And then we have Morgan Le Fay pop up in here. Yes, Morgan Le Fay. And, well, of course, this issue right here, final issue of the series. Yes, for some reason they decided to have it where these three issues lead into this very crossover. And, of course, what happens in here causes basically Atlantis to rise. Then we have this guy here, Lyran. Who is this guy? He's Namor's nephew. I'm not kidding about that. He's Namor's nephew. Yes, apparently he is the son of, I think it's Namor's brother. Yep. And then in the final issue of the series, it's Morgan Le Fay. Yes, Morgan Le Fay, the smoking hot Morgan Le Fay, rises Atlantis to the surface. And he had this little tagline here. Sorry, folks, no more Namor. You have to pick up our conclusion to this tale in our Atlantis Rising Spectacular on sale next month. And here we go. Fantastic Four, Atlantis Rising. Now, you're probably thinking, Nick, why is this called Fantastic Four / Inhumans, despite the fact there's no Inhumans books in this? Because the Inhumans are featured in this. And not only the Inhumans, but also Thor. Weirdly enough, Thor's book is not tied to this crossover, so in fact he's here. I thought that was kind of weird. Reading this, I'm like, really? Yes, really. And here's the interesting thing about Fantastic Four this period of time. Reed Richards is not here in this whole entire crossover. And you're probably asking, where the heck is Reed Richards? He's rumored to be dead at this point. No, I'm not kidding about that. They apparently try to kill him off at this point. So, yeah, So, pretty much in the way this whole crossover is just, of course, the artwork. Now, the writer of this book is not, I don't think it's John Harding, I think it is. No, he basically co-writes this with Tom DeFalco. I believe he was the writer for this for this period of time, but man. The artwork here is done by M.C. Wayman. Now, the thing with the artwork is, it is weird to say the least. So this is the early 90s. What do you expect? Yep. So, by the way, Sue Storm was basically wearing more conservative costume. And somehow, throughout this story, the Inhumans lay claim to Atlantis for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but they do. It's kind of odd. Namor is taken to the hospital. And of course, the main villain of this crossover is Morgan Le Fay. Not Namor, Morgan Le Fay. Yep. You have Thor fighting Namor in this crossover. Surprisingly, Namor's wife does not really play a role in here. And we also have Christoph Ballard. You're probably thinking, who the heck is this guy? He's Doctor Doom's adopted son. No, that's not a joke. That seriously is true. Doctor Doom adopted this kid, and his robots pretty much brainwashed him, think he was the actual Doctor Doom. During a period of time, one of the several times Doctor Doom was dead, so he briefly took over the country. And this very guy, when John Byrne took over the Fantastic Four book, the first thing he decided to do, have this guy shoot the box the building off into frickin' space and blow the damn thing up with Fantastic Four and all of the residents. But look enough, Sue Storm saved everybody. And the replacement, we had the Four Freedoms Plaza, which does appear in the story. Yes, it does. The Four Freedoms Plaza was around for about 15 years before it was destroyed by the Thunderbolts in issue 10. Well, you gotta thank Kurt Busiek for that. Yep. And the first part ends with basically Maximus the Mad appearing in the story. Yep. And then we continue in Fantastic Force number 8. Of course, there's a weird thing that happens in the story involving... Now, the issue itself was written by Tom Berbert and Mike Kervich. Now, here's the interesting thing for me in this particular series. I haven't read very much of Fantastic Force. I have not read the entirety of it. I mean, prior to this trade, issues 89 never read before. The only issues I read were the first 2 issues of this book. Yep. That's indeed all true. The fact that basically that was. Of course, there is a Revelations crossover. Now, Fantastic Four, mostly put was a spin-off series from the main Fantastic Four book. Not the first one. And this is mostly a team that was assembled by a grown-up version of Franklin Richards, though that is kind of weird. I think it was DeFalco who did that. Yes, I believe it's DeFalco. So fight these weird hordes. It's just weird, like I said. And apparently, like, this guy who apparently is working with Fantastic Force realizes, though, that Huntera is, in fact, its long-lost sister. And that would lead to Fantastic Four number, I think this is issue 401. I believe this. Yes. Yeah, 401. And there is... Now you're probably thinking, who is that? That's Scott Lang. Yeah, this is during the brief period of time where he was... Now, the lead Fantastic Four period of time, you're probably thinking, is it Ant-Man? No, I believe it was Susan... I think it was Susan Richards was lead of the team at this point in time. Yes. Yeah. So we have Maximus the Mad here because, of course, we gotta have Maximus the Mad. Anybody thinking, who's this old guy? I believe that's Nathaniel Richards. Reed Richards' father and Franklin's grandfather. Also, he is Susan Richards' father-in-law. Yep. More stuff with that, and then we can cover the part 3, which is Fantastic Force number 9. And here's a strange fact for you. This book ended 9 issues after this crossover wrapped up. Fantastic Four hit the restart button 14 issues later. Yep. So a little over a year later, Fantastic Four number 1, this book, Fantastic Four Force, would end. Yep. And of course we have some weird fighting happening here. Lyra, Human Torch's ex-wife, pops up in here too, just cause. We have some infighting, fighting, Morgan Le Fay. And then, for some reason, we see the return of Kid Franklin Richards. Where he says, I'm confused, Uncle Johnny, I don't understand. What's happening? Franklin? Under control? Yeah, this is never really explained. It's like it just dropped right after the story. That was probably explored in the Fantastic Force book in the very next issue. And we got to part 4 of the story, Fantastic Four, number 402. Yep. And it's basically the brainwashed Thor. Oh, and Thing still has his face like this. Yes. Though it does get fixed prior to the book's relaunch, that particular face of his. Yeah, we have more stuff, Morgan Le Fay, Triton being captured, stuff for the Inhumans. This is a really fun... I really like this story. Also, now, I should point out, though, for some reason, now, Black Bolt is still wearing the Jack Kirby costume. He still wears that costume today, mostly anyways, and Medusa is wearing a different outfit. She, like with the Wasp, keeps changing her outfit whenever she feels like it. Then you have Black Bolt fighting Namor, and of course Thor gets basically drawn in here. And then we have the finale, the final part, the conclusion, but not the epilogue, conclusion in Fantastic Four Atlantis Rising Part 4. Actually, I believe this is, I'm trying to think, this is, I think this is Part 6. Yeah, this is Part 6. Assault on Atlantis. We have more, of course, more pages turned on this. It looks like it's only 1 page this time, not a whole 2-page spread. Yeah. And then we have more. And, oh yeah, I kind of forgot this happened. Aegis disappears, but don't worry, that's kind of fixed before the relaunch happens. Thor still being brainwashed. And we can't figure out what happened to Atlantis, where some of them left. And of course, well, we have more between Thor and Black Bolt. Yes, Black Bolt in this weird looking art style. I do like the writing here. This is just a pretty fun crossover. Melgrapher gets on the Amity Blade. Yep. Amber goes off. Yeah, then at the end of and then in this story, Johnny Storm leaves the team, goes to Fantastic Force. That doesn't last very long because he's back to Fantastic Four before the things are done. And then we have Fantastic Four Unlimited number 11, which is basically the conclusion to this very story. Yep, and this issue right here, this issue would be the second to last issue of this entire series, because right after this crossover, the very next issue came out, final issue of the book. Yep. Excuse me. The Inhumans story is done by Roy Thomas. And No Man's Island is done by Gene Hardy, who is the writer of the main book. Yep. The first story is mostly put what the Inhumans are up to. Them deal with the aftermath of the Atlantis Rising crossover. They have various ports in New York, including here the Four Freedoms Plaza. Yeah, it's done really well here. No Man's Island is basically Namor's finale for this whole thing, where you have Ilaria, who I think was no enemy of his, who, yeah, she's the mother of this guy here. But according to her, and according to Namor, he theorizes, and she confirms this, Namor is not the father of this guy, but he does have Mackenzie blood, so that kind of makes him his nephew. Yep. He has some other stuff. Basically, we just have a kind of loose ends here. With this story, you have Namor kind of back in control of Atlantis, with him sitting on an empty throne with no Atlantis because someone got killed off in this story. But this was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this. It's a bit confusing with the whole thing with Franklin, but that's just basically something that, well, I've explored Fantastic Force. Yep. Really good book. I give this book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. Yeah, surprisingly, book came out in the 90s. The other artists I didn't mention here were, and of course, the other writers were Paul Ryan. The other artists were Dante Bassini, Paul Ryan. He wrote and drew this. Herb Temple and Doug Brathwaite. I think it's pronounced his name. Yep. Yes. And I do think it's interesting, though. You call the Fantastic Four as Inhumans, and yet no Inhumans book. I would have called Fantastic Four as Namor Atlantis Rising, not Fantastic Four. I would call it Fantastic Four / Inhumans / Namor. But what? I mean, the only reason why it's called that is because they're in the crossover, and yet they don't have a book in this period of time. Nope, they have no books in the 90s. Well, they do in the late 90s, but this is around the mid 90s. There's no crossover at this period. There's no series for them. No, this book was the only thing they're featured in. Yep. But yeah, not much else to say. Now, currently, if you're curious where the humans are, most of them are dead. Yeah, they got killed off, dead the humans. In a very confusing, somewhat confusing story, but good artwork, though. Yeah, some of them are dead, some are still alive, but it's not really clear exactly what happened with them. Yep, so yeah, that's a particular view. And that's all the videos I'm going to do tonight. So tomorrow, because I just finished up Skeleton Network Book 5. Tomorrow, we return of Super Sentai. Yep. That's come back tomorrow, okay? Next video. Bye.